my name is Miranda and today I'm here to discuss episode 2 of Exandria. I think this episode was definitely mostly about meeting the Far Ashari, but then also the circlet, or why can't I say that word? Circlet. Learning more about the circlet and where exactly this thing came from, what it does, kinda, sort of, and why we should not be messing with it. I definitely think it's giving me kind of like a Horcruxy vibe where it seems to like affect people when they're in the vicinity of it. For example, like when they were all on their night watches, and I mean obviously aside from like, you know, how if you're aligned good, like it just makes you vomit, like that's all, we're gonna put that aside. I'm just saying that I think like how so many of them were saying in their sleep how they were feeling like spiders and like crawling and stuff like that. And I know Opal, I think, was getting the most visions of it, but Dorian, oh gosh, these names, I can't. Dorian and Dariax and Dorian, the double D's. When one of the D's was sleeping and saying that he was getting like those bad feelings from it, like I was just like, oh, this is a Horcrux situation where I feel like it starts to affect you and just being around it is not good. So at the end when they were like, yeah, we're gonna keep it, I was like, and the fact that it's like not in like any kind of magical crate or anything like that anymore, I'm like double ooh. So I'm very nervous, and especially on top of that because good old Dariax, you know, he tries his best. He did touch the crown this episode and his eyes went jet black like a shark's, I think Liam described it as, and that's just not good. So far it's just the eyes, but I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe it'll be okay because he's not a good alignment. He's chaotic neutral, I think he said, so maybe it won't affect him more than that. But do I think they're lucky enough that it won't affect him more than that? Absolutely not. Am I waiting with bated breath to see what's gonna happen? Abso-freaking-lutely. And it's just so funny that it's Dariax of all. Like, of course he'd touch it, but then also, like, I just love how he's like, let's go! Like, he doesn't see, and everyone else is just like, dude, your eyes. And he's just like, what? Like, I love him. I love them all so much. Like, this episode, if episode 1 introduced it, episode 2 cemented it for me. They are so freaking chaotic. Like, all the things they do and the ways they get there and even their powers. There's no cleric, so like there's just such an urgency, I feel like, when they mess up and get hit, that I know 3 of them, I think, technically have cure wounds or like some ability to heal people, but like there's no cleric. So I don't know, is Revivify only a cleric spell? I mean, obviously I don't think any of them are packing the diamonds needed for Revivify anyway, but it is just kind of like not having a cleric in the party is very like, whew, okay, this is a little terrifying. So I do worry about them greatly, and I think their fighting is just so, it's so funny because it's like, you think of like people that are like so chaotic, right? Like some fantasy high ones we've seen. So chaotic. Mighty Nine's a great example, actually. But then when it comes time to fight, they're unstoppable and badass. Like, just they're a perfect example of that. These ones, I feel like they haven't quite found their footing yet to be fighting as a group yet. They definitely did better towards the end, but in the beginning when they were fighting those 2 nameless people, I was just like, what the frick is going, like, I think even Abria was like, I've lost count of what's happening right now, because it was like they were fighting that one guy and then Opal had taken that other guy and charmed him and was tying him up, and the chaotic creature that is Opal, I love her so much. And her, like, friendship with Dariax is honestly one of the greatest things ever. I love how they're both just, like, so, like, I just love how they're both so chaotic and, like, low wisdom. But then, like, when one of them is like, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this, the other one is like, you're gonna tell me not to do something? Like, that's a hoot. And it's just, it's so perfect. I also love Opal and Fern. I think they're really, really cute and sweet together, and I love that it was like the girls, you know, like she was like, I'm gonna wait for Fern when they were climbing up the thing, and it was just really cute. I feel like Fern, I love Ashley's voice, I've said before, as Fern. I feel like it's just so comforting and it just instinctively makes me trust Fern, but we know, as we learned in this one, that there is some kind of memory erasure going on with Fern, or at least altered memory. Her, like, not knowing this thing, and then Opal having something going on with Ted, clearly, who I think it's so cool if Ted is her patron. That's kind of like the vibe I was getting, was that Ted is the one that gives her powers. But then it's like, what is Ted? Is Ted like her own entity? Is Ted like how does she have the ability to grant and take away powers, and especially from her sister? I mean, I guess you can communicate pretty easily with your warlock, and like Ford would have the dreams, so it's, I guess it's not that out of the realm that like she can hear Ted in her mind, but it's just like, what is Ted? You know, that like they have this ability to just communicate with each other, and why isn't Ted there? Why is she, you know, protecting her from afar? And I think there's a lot more to that. Like, I just feel like a lot of these characters are so, like, silly and so, like, oh, like, no one would ever take them super seriously in a fight, and I just feel like they're all starting to kind of have a little bit of backstory, that stuff is, like, actually really dark, and like something's gonna come out that, like, I don't know, I'm really concerned with that. But yeah, I just feel like it's very interesting to see them work as a group, because I feel like, again, because we didn't see them actually meet, it's still interesting to see kind of the dynamics between them of who kind of gets along the best, or not even gets along the best, because I feel like they all get along pretty well, but like who, you know how like Bo and Ford were always their own thing, and Jester and Knot were their own thing, like kind of seeing how that breaks up I think is interesting. So like Orm and Dorian, oh my god, those names, I'm sorry. They obviously are very, like, close together, and then Dariax I feel like is very close to Dorian, but also Opal, like I said, and it's just funny to see, like, how that breaks up in terms of, like, how they're fighting. Like, I was crying laughing when they were separated in the ash, and they were like both thinking that something else was attacking them, but it was the other part of their group, and like the boys were like, we have to protect ourselves for the girls, and then like the girls are like, we have to defend ourselves for the boys, and then we're both like, ah, and just came at each other. I thought that was really, really fun. But it does make me very interested, because obviously this is 8 episodes, so things have to get rolling pretty quickly, and I'm wondering, like, are we gonna go to the Feywild now and see Fern's grandma? Because it seems like her grandma got her out of the Feywild for a certain reason that Fern herself doesn't know or doesn't remember, and I feel like that's kind of concerning. And also, like, who was this person pulling things out of the ground to make the fire elementals that attacked all the fire Ashari? Because right now the only, like, villains we know of obviously are the Spider Queen, but we don't technically know, like, her intentions. Like, maybe she just wants her crown back, but if she thinks they stole it, that's not going to be good. And then the nameless ones, obviously, who I guess Posca is the leader, which I feel like she might just be tracking them right now, and like I feel like they might be leading her. It's hard because like I feel like they might be leading her to someplace she wants to go, but then at the same time they don't know where they're going. Kind of, you know, like they're kind of winging it. Like, what is her end game, you know? Like, how is Posca related to this? Because obviously she had the residuum, she had the baby anklet, so it's like there's more going on that I'm just like, who's pulling the strings, you know? Like, who was it? Posca that attacked all those people on the ship? Did those people from the ship steal it, or were they getting it stolen from, you know? Like, how exactly did this come into the hands of who it came into? And literally it's just like, it's like when the Mighty Nine got the dodecahedron, and I feel like Essek, where I'm like, this is a very powerful item. And it is now with these chuckle fucks. Like, I feel like when Abria, I think it was an NPC that called them like the chuckle fucks, I was like, very good way to describe them. Like, they just are so, I love when Amy as Opal was just like, oh, maybe is there like a Spider King, a Spider Queen? And like, because she didn't play the game, and I didn't know this either because I like heard of it but forgot it till they said it, there was a Spider Queen, and I love how she was just like, oh, I'm right. Like, it's just so funny to see the new characters, particularly the new players, just get to see like how much control they have over their characters, but then also how like the story makes sense. Like, the game isn't set up to be against you, it's set up to be hard, yeah, and to make you work for it, but like, you know, it's not ridiculous to say whatever comes to your mind, you know? And I feel like that's kind of Opal's whole thing. So I'm very, very intrigued to see what's going to happen with her and Ted though now, because I mean, Ted has the power to take away her powers, which is an extremely dangerous thing, because I mean, they didn't have like a huge scary fight this episode, but I mean, they could have, and she would have had no powers for it. Like, that's the scary thing about being a warlock, is your powers are dependent on appeasing the person that gave you them, and I feel like if that's your sister of all people, that's gonna be a little bit hard. I did love their fight. Like, they had the sibling fighting down perfectly. Like, at the end when Opal was like, all right guys, Ted, are you listening? Because I really want to take the time to apologize to someone. And Ted was like, mm-hmm. And then she's like, I am so sorry, mister, for, and like was going on for him. And Ted was like, oh, screw you. Like, it was just so, so funny. Mister in particular, I really thought we were going to lose him this episode. And I was like, no, I love him so much. But it is interesting to see maybe how he plays more into what is going on with Fern and what, you know, her whole deal is. She doesn't know clearly, but it's just very sweet. So like, very glad he survived and wasn't like turned into a fire elemental permanently, or that they had to kill him. His frenemy thing going on with Dariax, I think is the funniest thing ever. And when he transformed and Dariax was like, I've known it all along, and like went to attack him. So funny. They did come to like a somewhat truce, so I feel like maybe that won't be as bad, but I feel like it'll still definitely be like a Tom and Jerry when like Tom and Jerry have a common goal. Like they don't like each other, but it's like, okay, we've got friends, so like they're gonna be like boinking each other. That sounded wrong. They're gonna be hitting each other in the background and stuff like that. When Fern's not looking, then when she turns around, they're just gonna be like, we're best friends, you know, like that kind of stuff. So it was a really, really fun episode, and I'm really excited to see where they're going to go now that the Fire Ashari did not have the answers that I think they were hoping they would find, especially Orm. I feel like Orm is kind of lost, and I think the big question too is, are we going to see Keyleth? We got mention of Keyleth again, and then we also got Gilmore, so I'm really interested to see how they're going to do that. Like, is Abria going to play Gilmore? Is Matt going to step in and play Gilmore for a sec? But yeah, I would be super excited if we got like a Keyleth cameo, even if it was just for like 30 minutes or something. So I honestly have no theories right now. I just feel like I don't know what's going on, and that's kind of the scariest and best part of all this. So if you have any theories and have seen this episode, please feel free to leave your thoughts about down in the comments. Also make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!